You know, sometimes I feel like horror movies can teach us some pretty important life lessons. Maybe something as simple as don't go walking down that alleyway. Don't go swim in that lake at night. But one big indiscriminate factor I find very common in the horror genre is women are scary. You can pick any of these examples here, but I think today we're going to look at ah, Qin, Unholy Women.
Well, this makes my research a little easier. Why not look into a movie that's 3 movies? It's not cheating. Really. Shut up. A popular subgenre, in fact, is the horror anthology, where the stories are kept shorter, sweeter, and to the scare. Right? Well, let's not waste any time. So we start this film of 3 films with a very yonic opening credits, the fleshy tunnels leading to a light at the end which oozes with clever metaphors. Classy. But I think we forgot the other stereotypes of women. How about the daunting symbolism of kitchens, vacuum cleaners, and the fashion industry? Okay, that one's pretty scary. Then we get our title to our first short, Rattle, Rattle. Really? A lullaby? You know, women can actually do scary things. They can kill by watching their videotapes, torture you. They kill priests, kill their ex-mercenary boss lover. The list goes on, and there's so much diversity, but I digress. We meet our main character Kanako and her fiancé Akira, who shares his love for her by giving her earrings which have the same bland color scheme as the rest of the film's color palette. We hear Akira is still in the middle of a divorce before he can marry Kanako, and then drops her off at her place. A strange burnt earring falls on her, and we hear the echo of Joker teeth. And then she flies into a rushing bloody cut.
I'm sorry, what? She looks like a Japanese bloody Superman.
Maybe they should have used a caution sign. She wakes up shortly after and sees a strange girl who's way too quiet. She vanishes, so she must be a ghost or something. She continues up her apartment and gets a phone call. Akira sounds nervous about his ex being angry about their engagement and warns her that she might be coming, and then...
Shit, what the... What was that? What is that? Ugh. Is that what the Japanese look like when they emote? Good God. I mean...
Give me this, give me that, and maybe this, but not. Kanako flees from the knife-wielding angry woman Japanese Michael Myers and hides in an office and tries to call Akira, only to get a repeating recorded message. Which is legitimately creepy, like a predator toying with its prey in what seems to be a reality-bending dream. Before we can guess what's going on, the lady in red plays the part of the Grudge playing Mexican maracas. Kanako flees again, calling for help, but finds the streets empty except for some ghost-like people circled around oddly. Hey, what's everyone looking at? Shiny new panty? Oh, no, just a dead body. Kanako sees the little girl again, who points to the vase that Kanako had tripped over earlier. She recalls how a mother who had lost her daughter kept that memorial for her, and so believes her knocking over the vase somehow has created an angry ghost that's stalking her. So, I guess it's not the ex-wife, right? The little girl points in a direction like the sign from Scary Movie to follow her to the apartment where she sees more ghost-like people whose faces are hidden and stand around creepily like drones. Re-enter the lady in red. And she's led into a yellow-lit room. Kudos to the film for the use of color, even though the idea of using red with monochrome is a big cliche in Japanese media. It's an awesome one. Even Kanako's white outfit separates her from the black-wearing ghost people. She searches the room to find toys and photos suggesting more information about the little girl, but is interrupted by the lady in red, who attempts her Looney Tunes impression. She falls out the window and transitions to the next scene via white fade. She wakes in a hospital, revealing to us that a woman had committed suicide last night, falling into Kanako. To which they had to operate the woman's hands out of her.
Ew. Like Dragon Ball Z?
We come to find out last night was just a dream that took place while Kanako was unconscious after being pummeled by the suicidal woman. Supposedly there was no lady in red, and Akira's ex in fact was trying to call to say that she was also remarrying. I suppose we're meant to assume the suicidal woman was the mother of the little girl who had died falling out of a window, but to which the memorial vase was knocked over by Kanako. So did knocking over the vase both upset the little girl's ghost, as well as conveniently position her under the suicidal woman? That's a lot to buy. So then the lady in red might have been the anger left over by the suicidal mother, like a continued emotion, similarly detailed in the Grudge movies. Okay, I suppose that makes enough sense.
But that's not all!
Kanako goes to check the place where the mother committed suicide, trying to contemplate her tragedy. A neighbor tells her that she remembers that mother very well and how she committed suicide a year ago by hanging. This confusing plot somehow expects us to be surprised that it was not the suicidal woman that fell into Kanako last night, nor was she trying to kill her, and nor was it Akira's ex-wife, but another creature entirely. Whoa, that's a lot of hands. Kinky. But what is this thing exactly?
What? Twist?
Yeah, we're not really given anything specific. She transforms into the evil rabbit from Donnie Darko and throws Kanako off the balcony, giving us the last reveal that the woman who fell into her earlier was herself, creating a time loop. Yeah, so the big reveal was a monster that time travels.
Okay. I guess I didn't see this coming, and I know the twist depends on you being confused and all, but I still am.
I mean, what is this monster? Where did it come from? What was it doing? Why did it attack Kanako? How does it travel through time? Does it collect souls? How is the mother and daughter ghost involved? Trapped by a monster's spell? Well, by the end of it all, it's still less vague than Lost. But, hold on. Let's see if I can find some context on this monster. Okay. So the closest I can find in Japanese folklore is the term yokai, which is an eclectic term for generalized supernatural spirits or creatures that causes mischief, harm, and sometimes fortune, or the most common feature of shape-shifting. Interesting. I like the use of utilizing mythology as a reference for horror, but I still feel like less terrified and more my head cocked at the screen.
In conclusion, the first short is a basic haunted house ride with a pretty cool monster, but a more than ridiculous plot. I think I actually had a better time believing it was the ex trying to kill the woman, because I felt more real and down to earth before, still being shockingly creepy. Worth a watch, but I guess you can only expect so much out of a convoluted 30-minute plot. Part 2!
Our second film is Hagane, which translates to steal. This is a bizarre little story about romance in a sick, twisted horror kind of comedic way. If that sounds like your cup of tea,
Then let's start from the beginning.
a mechanic named Sakaguchi sets his employee, Takahashi, on a date with his sister. The photograph he shows him implies that she looks pretty darn good, and is completely normal. But that would be too easy now, wouldn't it? He toasts to him even though he says he's too young to drink, and I look at that man's eye and I think he must be a virgin too. Perfect for the feast. We get a glimpse of our Jessica Rabbit making her entrance with long sexy legs first, except her entire upper body is hidden in a burlap sack. Yeah, that's hot. So much left to the imagination.
What's in the bag? A shark or something?
But that seems to be the intent. We never see what's inside the bag, but get plenty of unsettling clues. Her brother feeds her via tube with God only knows what. He sends Takahashi off on a date with encouraging words of advice. Yikes. So they go on their date, and I guess this is some strange approach to slapstick. A nice parallel is how the main character is as awkward as the presumably disfigured sister, which makes for a pretty funny matchup. But the fact that he tries to abandon her, and even later tries to even kill her, makes this a little awkward to find humorous. She returns, though, and adds to the twisty humor by showing how she has a perverted side to her. She loves sensual footsie. To the extreme! This next unsettling scene in the shower equals to everything wrong. Her brother bathes her, revealing mud falling out of the bag as well as insects crawling out of her while she makes animal noises. He even gets impatient with her and hits her and calls her a freak. You'd think this would make this a sad story, but we return to the awkward shtick. She chases Takahashi with a tranquilizer that makes a machine gun sound effect. And when Takahashi tries to defend himself by beating her with a steel pipe, she sucks it up and appears to be aroused by it. Oh boy. Horror comedy porno. I've hit a low. But don't the Addams family love this kind of abuse too?
All I can guess is this is a resounding similarity to another Japanese movie called Tetsuo.
No, not the psychic kid from Akira. Yeah, the man who slowly becomes a machine. Maybe that's a unique area of interest in Japan involving appeal with metal. Anyway, the sister gestures begging for more, which causes Takahashi to drop a boulder on her and throw her over a cliff.
What? You wouldn't do the same?
He then hides from his boss in his apartment. Oddly funny, but at least suspenseful. I guess overall I noticed this film is not really ha-ha funny or scary. It's more of a sick curiosity that doesn't really go too far, but messes with your imagination to envision worse things. The closest to comedy is a wheezing laugh. Until the gasp for the final scene. We see a unique twist on the horrid chase scene where Hagane chases Takahashi, but shot in a romantic way, even though Takahashi might not see it that way. Kind of imagine the twist of the romance comedy in the beginning of Shrek 2. Well, one scene leads to another and we wind up in a barn where they share an intimate moment. She reveals her arm, which is shockingly normal. Then why did she hide that? Wouldn't someone like her want to show off her best assets? They kiss, which results in Takahashi with scratches all over her face, and after a lustful crawl towards him, legs first, crotch prepped, they have the ultimate makeout, ending in her devouring him.
Fine. Cue in movie reference.
Now it's Tetsuo minus the drill penis. I guess you could say this is like a praying mantis where the female devours the male to pollinate her eggs, to which the movie does imply a lot of insect-like qualities to Hagane, but this just kinda goes in every strange territory with its vorophilic nature. Either way, Hagane weeps over the loss of her lover as her brother burns the evidence and puts up a help wanted sign, starting the cycle all over again. Aha! But being the strong-willed woman she is, she looks up to the optimistic side of life, not needing a man to complete her, and dances to UFO-sounding music at the end credits. Granted, it's an interesting presence and a very unsettling ending, but regarding scares, this may not be the horror entertainment you're looking for. Depending on your sick sense of humor and curiosity, you may want to check it out, but with caution.
The last one is Inheritance, and I'm not gonna lie, they saved the weakest for last.
The intro shows a mother leading her son with a strange melody to a shed for some unsettling actions, while the sister is left outside. Years later, the little girl is a mother. Her name is Psycho.
That's not subtle at all.
And her little boy Michio. After divorcing her husband, she moved from Tokyo to her mom's in order to find work and have a place to stay. However, her mom blames her for breaking up her family and that she should return back to Tokyo as soon as possible, almost as if desperately. Michio serves as the audience point of view to ask questions about the environment.
あれは子供なのにおじさんなの？
は7つの時に亡くなっちゃった。
死んだの？お母さんもおばあちゃんみたいになっちゃうの？お母さんは精神病なの？昨日オクラで何してたの？
オクラ?
Strange things begin when Michio sees the ghost of a boy with a broken neck who supposedly is Psycho's missing brother from many years ago. Mentioning the ghost boy to his mom leads her to looking around the shed to where she finds a secret scroll, which must have something ominous on it because the music gets brain aneurysm inducingly high-pitched. This starts a series of scenes between Psycho and Michio where she starts to get a little bit nutty.
"お母さんもあれ見たのね." 今日からここで出なさい。
She even sings the same unsettling song her mother sang, the one about tethers and whatever.
どこ
only real interruption to these scenes is the appearance of another character named Kaibo, who Psycho knew when they were kids and is now a social worker. You'd think this would come into play. Nope. I mean, the grandmother tries to call for help knowing Psycho is going crazy, but no one comes, despite Psycho being too late in her interception, so makes sense, why not? The short leads to Psycho storing Michio in the shed to sleep, despite the fact that he'd rather sleep with his mom who's been scaring him lately. In the shed, he finds a trunk with something moving inside. He opens it and meets a familiar face, only to reveal a skull, presumably Psycho's little brother, but this is no surprise, so the reaction seems a tad over the top and not really all that scary, but at least maybe a tad Shakespearean.
Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy.
Michio's grandmother helps him escape the shed, and realizes his mom might be after him and flees from her, constant creepy echoing his name.
Michio? 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 Michio?
Till she finally spots him and seems to be normal again, and invites Michio into her arms saying, "Let's be together forever." The next morning, the grandmother and Kaibo are on the scene being useless, while it's revealed Psycho singing the same chanting song with her son lying limp in her arms. The scroll shows us an exact position of the mother and son, showing how this was a curse that continues to happen. So the image reveals that this is a thing, but why?
That makes no sense!
I know the idea of your mother trying to kill you is creepy, but there's just no reason behind it. I looked it up, there's no context even in mythology. No yokai, no supernatural stuff, just a woman sees a picture and it makes her kill her son. The title implies it's a familial curse, but has it happened more than twice? And could the grandmother have hidden the scroll better or destroyed it? There's no further insight on the story. And I know I said sometimes the story doesn't always matter, that it's the moments that make the piece scary, but the setup has to make sense. Even Suspiria had a basic setup. A girl goes to a foreign school where students are dying. Boom! Mystery and potential for creativity.
So is there a conclusion that we can come to about anthology films as to whether or not shorter movies make for some better scares? In this case, not necessarily. But there were certainly shocking moments, and if a short horror film does not live up to its name, at least it has the dignity to be done quickly. Now for the pros and cons.
Of course, the first appearance of the lady in red. Holy hell does this fucking scare me. Perhaps it's the sudden use of such a scary image and flashing it in front of the camera and just having such a strange, surreal, twisted, contorted expression. It's something that looks so unnatural and so unpleasant that just flashes right in front of you unexpected is what makes it so unsettling and takes you off your guard. And the fact that she sort of transforms throughout the entire short really lives up to the name of being a pretty terrifying monster. Next, the creepy phone recording. Even though this was only just barely used, it's still a creepy idea, the idea of a predator toying with its prey by using sounds that the prey may be used to and then playing it back against them and giving them an environment to be scared in before coming in for the final kill. And of course, you just see her up in the ceiling again, which always makes you worried about looking up. And lastly, Agane. What else is there to say? It's a little masterpiece. It's very strange and bizarre, but really fascinating. And the cons? Oh, those odd CGI credits. I don't really get them, and they almost seem too sexist to really take seriously. The lame time travel ending. I mean, why? It just seems to be kind of a cop-out, and I sort of understand the idea of like a prediction coming true. That's very common in Greek mythology, but in this case, it's literal time travel. It doesn't really work, and I haven't even read about this in the yokai folklore even. And the bland personalities. At least in the case of the first and the third films, none of the characters are memorable. There's nothing that sticks out on them. There's no real character development. It's just people being taken for the ride. And I suppose that's okay in the sense that they're almost like bland identities for the audience to fill their shoes in, but still doesn't excuse for the fact that I never really gave a shit about any of the characters. And the Hagane one, though, it was all about the relationship, so of course, when it came to Sakaguchi, Takahashi, and Hagane themselves, there was a lot of dynamic relationship building going on between all three of them, and it was fascinating for that reason. The third short was contrived and boring. Now, to be fair, it did have its moments, but they just never felt fully executed. But perhaps it just came from a poor setup. There's just no reason, it's not fully explained. So I feel like going in all confused and just waiting for answers, and you never get them. And most importantly, the scares. Number one, of course, oh God, oh Lord, the lady in red. Even when she's doing her goofy little contortion cartoony thing there, good Lord, does her face just put me off ease. So I guess that just goes to show you, sometimes it really just takes one unsettling image to really put you off. Second, again, the phone recording. Just really eerie, just very sardonic in the way it's played out. And the payoff is definitely very creepy and unexpected. And then Hagane's makeout scene. Oh, Lord. I suppose you could say it built up, and then when you finally see it happen, you almost kind of expect it, but at the same time you don't. So when you see this happen, you're just sort of taken aback, and you're sort of left silent at the end, just listening to the ambience of the kill at the end. And lastly, to give credit to the final short, the trunk and the scary mother scenes were legitimate, pretty scary scenes. They're at least good ideas that could have definitely used some better execution. But the idea of sneaking up to the attic and seeing your mom acting sort of strange and then sort of staring back at you through the mirror is definitely very off-putting. And in a way, it kind of reminds me of scenes from, like, say, like other things like Fatal Frame on the PlayStation 2. And the trunk itself can always lend to some great mystery that they could have utilized even more. The trunk should have been an inciting incident, not a last-minute throw-in. Psychological material would have made this scene connect. But again, some arbitrary curse that we know nothing about, I don't get it.
There you have it. 3 movies analyzed, and perhaps more anthology films in the future are a possibility. Because some of the most uncomfortable and thrilling stories are the short urban legends.
Quick snippets with a good setup and a shocking twist. Sometimes it's just an idea, or a situation where you thought you were safe or sane is now brought into question, even though when you sense danger, it's not always simple to escape it or to even understand it, until it's too late.
So that wraps things up, and until next week, I wonder who that could be.
Like, 冗談、ほら。